My great-granddaughter is 3. She won't be 7 for 4 years, but I think I'm going to buy each one of those books for her. That was very interesting, Miranda. Thank you for sharing. Okay. My jobs provide satisfaction, joy, and frustration. I probably like everybody's jobs. They are weekly 1-hour musical variety shows for the local adult daycare center that many of our people in our group perform in. One of them is Phil there. 2 yearly musical shows in either Clubhouse 3 or 5. Maintain my own website and some other people's. Create videos and upload them to YouTube. Care for my husband and write. I'm writing a fictional book right now. It's challenging to write because of the research hours to access needed information. The story follows the life of a very self-sufficient 8-year-old boy who loses his father. The research, he is going to live in the woods in upper Michigan, north of Michigan. And guess what I had to do in order to find out how he was going to survive? I had to spend hours in research. Anyway, I published my first 2 books in October of 2018. Both of them are autobiographical with lots of pictures. Journey to Joy. Well, how did this happen, first of all? I had reams of paper, journals. I'd been writing all my life. Never thought about publishing a book. I joined the publishing club. And there I gained the tools and the knowledge and also a lot of guidance and help. And published my first book. Once I had the first one out there, then I was able to proceed pretty much on my own. The first one was Journey to Joy. It covered my life from 0 to the middle of last year, 2019. My second book is called Sunshine Stories, and it contains many stories that are not included in Journey to Joy. Not many sales. I am not a salesman. I don't know how to sell things. Yet I'm very, very happy that they're out there on Amazon, both in book form and in Kindle form, for my friends and my family to access. Here's some stories from the books. Music is my life, but how did it start? My parents started home church meetings when I was tiny, maybe 3. I was upstairs in my crib. I loved the music. I started to sing loudly. Finally, my mother climbed the stairs and said, "Be quiet or else." At 3, I already knew what or else meant. But when she was gone, I kept singing quietly. I couldn't be stopped. My dad became a minister, and so my entire life until I left home, I lived in a fundamentalist church environment. My mother was extremely protective of her girls. She wanted to keep us safe. So we grew up isolated from the outside world entirely. But music kept me happy. I sat in the front row in church, learned every song, sang my heart out, and ignored the sermons. When I was 7, I discovered harmony. My sister Waverly, she was 5 years older than me, and we performed duets at various large events. She and I spent many Sunday afternoons making music in the empty sanctuary. We even learned to play piano duets. I have some childhood adventures. One of them was told in a story called A Bicycle Built for None, and it's included in Sunshine Stories. Waverly was 10 years old and babysat for the neighbors across the highway. With reluctant permission from Mother, she bought a used bicycle from the family with her babysitting money. She promised to ride only in the yard. As she rode, I chased her. We had a game, meet you at the corner. We circled the garage in opposite directions and met at the corner. The game eventually ended with a freak accident. We collided. As I lay on the ground with my nose bleeding, we immediately agreed not to tell Mother. Waverly ran in to get a washcloth. When she returned and saw the damage, she screamed for Mother. The accident had somehow cut the right nostril completely through. Waverly was devastated. She was kept screaming and crying, "I'll never ride my bike again, I'll never ride my bike again." Well, the doctor sewed me up with 7 stitches, and within a year, it wasn't noticeable at all. But Mother held Waverly to her promise. She never allowed any of us girls to ride a bike again. Funny part of this story is that my little brother, we were all 5 years apart, 3 girls and then a boy. My little brother, she bought him a bike. Yeah. Waverly and I loved to watch our dad. He was skillful. Our home didn't have any water. Our dad built scaffolding and drilled for water. When he reached water on his 3rd try, it was rusty. On his 4th try, we finally got good, sweet water. But not only did he have a well with the water, he built a pump over it, and then built piping all the way to our kitchen, built a sink with drainage, installed a pump, and we had running water. Of course, we still had an outhouse that we had to use. Let's see. The secret. Our dad had a table saw where he cut and formed poles and boards from trees that he chopped down in the nearby forest. Waverly and I loved the sound of the saw and the smell of the fresh cut wood. I can actually almost smell that right now. One day, as we watched him, he set his work aside and said, "Can you keep a secret?" Waverly and I nodded solemnly. He helped us up a ladder to the rafters, and there was the wonderful secret. A mother cat and 5 tiny babies. We were so excited, so delighted, as we touched the soft fur. Mother eventually discovered the secret. She screamed, "How could you, Walter?" The very next day, she was outside hanging the wash on the clothesline, and she screamed. Walter came to his rescue. She'd almost stepped on a really large mouse. He said, "Gino, the cat will be a wonderful mouser. Don't worry about the babies, I'll give them away." And that's how we got to have a cat. I wanted to have roller skates. I was about 10. In 1986, long after I was gone from home, I think I was in my 40s by that time, I wrote a Christmas poem to my parents. When we were hiding Christmas gifts this year, I remember a Christmas long ago. Although it's something you might not remember, this true story, I want you to know. One day I needed something out of reach. Today I don't remember quite why. In the basement, in front of Daddy's workbench, I climbed on some boxes to reach up high. The boxes tumbled down, and so did I. I got up and started to fix the disarray, and there they were, those precious roller skates. Imagine my surprise, thrilled surprise, and then dismay. There was no doubt in what I had to do. I did my best to correct the damage done, but Mother or Daddy might have seen a clue. I tried to be convincing to everyone. Came Christmas and time for the special surprise, a happy gift, but with my guilt, I felt that they knew. Wished I could tell them I wasn't snooping. Wished I could tell them what was really true. And in this poem, I did. My young adult adventures. I left the restrictive environment of my home when I graduated from high school. 2 friends and I rented an apartment in Minneapolis. I met Lloyd, my first husband. We soon became very romantic. But Lloyd had to leave for a high-paying job. I stayed with him at the train station and actually didn't get home until morning. I had to take the bus home. When I got into the apartment, I discovered a letter from my roommates. They asked me to leave. They said I was setting a bad Christian example with my behavior with Lloyd. Fortunately, a kind neighbor took pity on me and let me stay at her house. Lloyd's adventures. This is my husband, first husband. His family called him George because his dad's name was Lloyd. So George had been a forceps baby. The forceps cut a nerve in his face, so the left side was drooping. But he grew strong and learned to survive in a hostile environment, hostile world. He always had girlfriends and usually treated them very well, but he had a streak of jealousy. Romance and jealousy. George's blue car was still in Detroit. He'd been forced to move in his senior year. He got a job doing dishes at a pizza store and saved his earnings so he could get his car. Even with no car, he and his girlfriend Judy dated. Judy lived several miles out of town, so they walked many miles during their early courtship. George's friend Tom had a car, and he let George borrow it. George took Judy to the high school's football game. George walked proudly with his girl beside him to the bleachers. They climbed to a row of empty seats and cheered as the team advanced towards their goal. Judy turned and the jacket fell into the space beside her. She picked it up, turned and smiled and handed it back to the fella who had dropped it. George's temper flared as he saw his girl smile at the fella. He stood up and menacingly growled, "You want him? You can have him." And he left. Judy was shocked. She gathered her purse and jacket and slowly descended the bleacher stairs. She hurried to the parking lot, searched for the borrowed car. It was gone. She began to walk home. Hot tears raced down her cheeks. How could he just leave me here? Why did he get so mad? I didn't do anything wrong. She's supposed to be my girl. George fumed angrily as he drove to Tom's house to return the car. Tom smiled when he saw him. "Did you have fun?" "Not really. I left her at the game." "Are you crazy? That's no way to treat anyone, especially the girl you say you love. Not only is it crazy, it's dangerous. I'm going to go find her." He started the car, but he knew that George and Judy really did love each other. "Get in, we'll find her." You two can make up. Tom continued, Judy didn't do anything wrong. Anyone would have done what she did. As they drove, George reflected, you know, Tom, I don't want to blow up like my dad does all the time, but it's hard. They found Judy walking the dark country road. George contritely jumped out, oh, Judy, I'm so sorry. Tearfully, she accepted George's hug and apology. Don't you know how much I love you? A regrettable adventure. George purchased a bus ticket to Detroit and went to retrieve his car. He had the money. The registration had expired, and he didn't have enough money or the time to get the registration. He carefully changed the last digit on the license registration sticker from A7 to an 8. Back home, he picked up Judy. Let's go to Hamburger Haven. Thrilled that George finally had a car, Judy joyously jumped in, ready for a new adventure. But it would not be a happy one. As George turned into the restaurant driveway, a police car followed him. The police officer asked for license and registration. Anxiously, George complied. The police officer forcefully instructed, this registration is invalid. Get out of the car, both of you. He handcuffed George, sat down on the ground. He called for backup and impounded the car. The responding officer took Judy home, and Lloyd George went to jail. The rules allowed George a single phone call. He called his dad, who said, son, you got yourself into this mess. You're going to have to get yourself out. The on-site officer humanely allowed him one more call. He reached Tom, who said, well, I'll see what I can do. After 4 days, his jail time ended. He walked 5 miles to Tom's house. What happened, Tom? Tom, shamefaced, hung his head and replied, I'm sorry, George, I had no money, and my parents wouldn't help. I had called some of the parishioners, but everyone seemed to think you got what you deserved, and it would teach you a lesson. George replied with rancor, I know it's not your fault, Tom. Yes, I made a mistake. I've relearned another lesson. The only person I can count on is myself. And in the Army, after graduation, George used his given name, Lloyd. He had a life plan to become a career officer in the Army and retire after 20 years. At the recruiter's office, he passed the initials test. He traveled to Chicago in a bus filled with other recruits and was proud when his test results qualified him for officer training. Just after he received the results, medically healthy and ready for boot camp, the officer directed him back to the doctor's office. The doctor examined his left eye. Lloyd, you need to pack your bags and go home. What? I'm sorry, I'm medically unfit because you cannot close your left eyelid. I have to classify you as 4F. That means you are ineligible to join the armed forces in time of peace. You may be drafted if there's a national emergency. Devastated, with no backup plan, he tried another branch of service with the same result. He tried to fight against the ruling. You mean that when I want to join the service, you tell me I can't, but if there was a national emergency, I could be forced? That's not fair. That makes no sense. But that was the rule. So there he was, his plan shredded. He didn't want to go home a loser, so he packed a small suitcase and traveled the United States on his thumb. Now, do you know what I mean by that, right? He hitchhiked around the United States twice and found that he loved California. That leads us to 43 years of love, laughter, and tears, because 1 year after I met Lloyd, I married him. And we started our working careers, earned our BAs, raised 2 children, cared for our granddaughter for her first year, and in '95, moved to Leisure World. When I married Lloyd, I didn't know how to drive. After 3 years of marriage, he decided to teach me. It was hard. I swear I gave Lloyd his first gray hairs. I was finally driving on the main roads and doing pretty well. I made a left turn too sharply into the lane of oncoming traffic. Quickly, I turned the wheel and jumped the curb of the Meridian. I turned the car off, handed the keys to Lloyd, and said, "I'm done." Lloyd did the right thing. He insisted I drive off the curb when it was safe and continue. We celebrated when, after 3 tries, I finally got my driver's license. Lloyd and I love the village, now known as Laguna Woods Village. He enjoyed it for 10 years before I lost him. Love the second time around came. David and I found each other. We expanded my musical group and formed the Sunshine Performance Club and started major shows. I was doing minor shows before that. They were always free or reasonably priced and always for charity. We look at this legacy with joy. David and I produced and performed in a 3-person show this past June. It was David, he's also known as Raindrop, me, and Jackie O'Neill, a professional pianist. It was a dream come true. The story is included in this year's Village Stories 2019. Thank you for your attention.